Hello, this is Mike from Dimensional Walking, and today I want to talk about some of the more unusual alien beings that are basically visiting this Earth and probably living among us. I kind of went through my notes that I had for over the years on about the 1,500 or so abduction contactee interviews I've done. And I also did some other research online and talked to some of my other colleagues in the UFO alien research world. Okay, so let's go through some of the. I'll talk about the more common ones just briefly. I've talked about them before, and then I want to go to some of the ones, the rarer ones, the more uncommon ones. And I'll try to, in between, I'll talk a little bit about some of my own personal experiences with a few of these. Mainly the ones I had experiences with were the more common ones, but there's probably been a couple other experiences that were the not uncommon ones, but I'm maybe not 100% aware of who or what they were. So, anyways, with that said, let's move on. So, the typical one, of course, is the gray. Everybody knows about the gray, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. Typically they're 3 to 5 feet. There's something called the tall grays, which are quite a bit taller, up to 6 foot, and they're completely a different creature than the smaller grays. And of course, the smaller grays, as you all probably know, are the ones that are involved with the vast majority of the abduction scenarios. Okay, and there's been people that have talked about the grays. There's been these entities that are maybe cloned, maybe they're kind of the slaves of some of the more superior alien beings, such as the reptilians, and the grades are doing the work of some other group like the reptilians. Those are all just speculative and theory. I'm not really sure at all exactly that. The one grade that I did meet in person seemed to be pretty dang intelligent, and basically, I didn't seem like he was being controlled by anybody or robotic or anything like that. Although with a lot of the interviews I did, they did talk about the Greys being very robotic. Maybe they were actually robots. Um, they don't seem to know, but they didn't seem to have, they had very little emotion and they just seemed to be mechanical. So I don't know. Anyways, you know the description. The big, large eyes, almond shaped eyes, are really one of the most characteristics that everybody talks about. They usually have small, lipless mouths, seemingly emotionless in expression. Um, anyways, that's the Greys. Everybody talks about the Greys, and they were doing a heck of a lot of abductions, I believe. But it's really a little bit kind of calmed down, probably the last 10 years or so. I don't think when I've talked to people that have been abducted before, they say that seems to have slowed down. Okay. For what that's worth, that's probably a good thing, I guess. Who wants to become abducted by aliens for sure? So then we have a group called the Nordics. Okay. Again, a more common group. They're tall, slender, uh, often exceeding 6 foot tall. Their skin is very smooth and almost luminous in quality. They have this long blonde flowing hair, piercing blue or green eyes, and they seem to be the kind of the good guys. Okay, one of the groups that I consider the good guys, um, and they seem to be loaded with all this knowledge and uh, so they seem to be good. Whenever people seem to have encounters with them, they seem to come away feeling really good about those encounters. And typically they don't seem to be involved in the abduction scene, although people do talk about them seeing them in the background, like they're observing. Okay, and I'm sure some of you people listening to this will probably agree with me on that one. Um, they telepath. They can do telepath, or they actually seem to be able to talk English in this case, or other languages, I'm sure. So they are, I would say they're a stark contrast to the Greys in many ways because of the kindness that they emit. And they're most people when they're having an abduction or encounter, again, will have had it with grace. Okay, no doubt about it. And again, the Nordics are in the mix, but they're probably a distant second or third as to aliens or entities that people do encounter. So then we got the next group, which is a common group again, less common than the first two I just talked about, and that's called the reptilians. Now, reptilians, and I had my own encounter with a reptilian. It wasn't fun, trust me. Very intimidating. I guess very ugly in many ways, unless you're into snakes or reptilians, because that's what this particular one looked like. It looked like a kind of a very large snake. At least the head part was, and then the body, of course, had arms and legs. They come in seems they come in many different sizes. The one I saw was probably about 5.5, 6 foot tall. And again, of course, they have these strange eyes, kind of cat eyes in many ways. Um, and they seem to have some shape shifting type abilities too. They seem to be, of course, I talk about them because they always seem to be wanting controlling things, power hungry, I guess you could call it. And most of the people that see them are pretty fearful of them, and they're very suspicious of them. There's a sense that they're being deceived, and I believe that. Okay, my encounter basically, I kind of held my own ground. I'm a big believer of being fearless, especially against these type of beings that are trying to be not so nice to humans. And I think you just got to stand your ground on it because I've always said that humans are very powerful. Their weakness is fear. That's their weakness. So if they're not fearful, they're very big or very large, as I say. So, anyways, again, the reptilians, they occupy this dark and sinister corner. Um, again, I've had experiences with them. I've known other people that have. Some of the people I talk to, witnesses, have. Not as much as the Greys again, but they had them. Now, the next group is the Palladians. Now, a lot of people I believe, get the Nordics and the Palladians mixed up. They're sort of the same, but when I say one comes kind of Nordics, I'm not even sure where the Nordics exactly come from, but they don't come from Pleiades. Okay. The Palladiums again, the description is fairly similar. Uh, Again, they're slender. They have kind of a very fair skin. Um, they have very gentle, quite attractive features in many ways that are attractive to humans. I think Rainbow had an experience. She did a video on it, which she believes she met a Palladian woman in her spaceship, and it's a pretty interesting video. They like to give message of love and peace and unity, and that's their message. Who knows what happens behind the scenes, but that's truly their message. And a lot of people feel that they are the really good ones. Okay, I think people are not sure about the Nordics so much, but the Palladians really seem to be the one that would like to save us, I guess, of ourselves. I don't know if they ever will, but that's what the feeling is anyways. And a lot of the people I've talked to, the abductees, they would say that the Palladians were very uplifting, very spiritual in perspective, and they looked forward to having another encounter with the Palladians. Okay, so now we're going to kind of shift over. Those are the ones that are very common, reasonably common. Most of the stuff is around the grays, and then the rest of the three of them, I believe I said, yeah, three different ones. They basically are less than, I would say 75% of everybody I've talked to about abductions and encounters were with grays, and the other 25% were the other groups that I just told you about. Now let's go to the groups that are very more, I would call them almost on a rarefied, about that last 25%. Okay, then there's the first one is the avian beings. These are the ones that are winged. Many of them very much look like birds. Okay, in many ways. Some of them have beaks, some have a lot of feathers. Um, Some of their heads are basically bird-sized kind of heads, and but then there's other ones that even though they have a beak, they have this kind of human look to them. They have human eyes, maybe a human mouth. They may even have some kind of appendages that sort of look like wings, but maybe look like arms too. And then instead of having legs that look like bird legs, they kind of have human legs, very skinny though. Okay, that's what I've heard. I've never met one myself. So, and again, some of them have this very beautiful plumage, like a peacock type plumage that they have, which is pretty uh crazy looking, I guess. Uh, some of them are telepathic, communicate or gestures, or actually will use gestures, while others have this high pitched vocalization, even kind of a high technology spoken language. Sometimes the vocalization is really hard on human ears, though. I had one person that I'd interviewed that did have an encounter with an avian type entity. And I guess it got so intense, this high pitch kind of noise or vocalization that they created, that it was very difficult to be close to this entity. Um, so, anyways, but a lot of people that see them are at awe. They don't seem to be aggressive at all, although just the way they look and getting close to you with their, maybe a large beak would be kind of aggressive in many ways. Um, and one of the things that I had read that some of these avian ones are actually connected maybe to the Nazca lines, and some of the theory is that the Nazca lines were constructed so kind of creatures like these avian beings would fly above them at a distance and actually could see down onto the way they looked. And plus, if you look at some of the Nazca lines and some of the characters on there, they're actually looking very similar to what I'm describing to you of these avian beings. So, anyways, but it's still quite a mystery. They really are, and again, they're fairly rare. So then we got something called insectoids, like the praying mantis, for instance. And they have many features. Again, they have features of an insect, basically. Primarily, most of them, and there's been a few people that have come to me, I've never had the experience. I will tell you a funny experience I did have when I did the Olympics in Salt Lake in Atlanta. I was working in the back and I came around the corner, and of course, I've always been into this UFOs, alien stuff for all my life. So, so anyways, I came around the corner and there was this huge. When I say huge, it was not gigantic, but it was a very large. I've never seen anything like it. Mantis, bug, insect, right? And it was sitting on a tire of a truck, and it was at least, honest, a foot. And to see that with its kind of claws, like this, hanging and looking at you, kind of moving its head like this, is pretty incredible. It really put me back, even though it didn't take me long to realize it was just an insect. Because I've heard people, somebody that I had talked to and did an interview with, one came up to its house, to a person's house, and went by the patio door. It was starting this kind of winding kind of sound that was just incredible. They were afraid, this woman that was behind the door, he didn't open the door, but she was afraid that it was either going to crack her skull, just the vibration, or was going to shatter all the windows in the house. Now, eventually, she said it seemed like 15 minutes. I was standing there doing this. Reality, it may have only been a couple minutes, and it left. But she said she doesn't want to ever see a this praying mantis insectoid ever again. I mean, it was nothing. It wasn't a pleasant encounter. Uh, she wasn't harmed physically at all, but I think emotionally for quite a while she was. So, anyways, so they seem to be extremely intelligent, I've also heard, or more of a research thing, is that sometimes they will just telecommunicate with humans and tell them a lot of things of high wisdom. They would like download on humans, and they would learn all kinds of stuff, really interesting stuff too. So, anyways, the thing about the insectoids are it's really just looking at them and trying to get your arms around what the hell you're looking at. And then when they do their thing with their noise and its vibration, it gets a little scary. So, anyways, thank God they're kind of rare. Okay, so this next one, I want to mention it. I have some, I just mainly because I got some feelings about it. There's some people that talked about some of the cryptids, Sasquatch and Dogman and some of the other ones. It's kind of being alien. And I will tell you this, I think they're completely a separate group of entities, the cryptids. I'm not saying, I'm pretty certain, my feelings are, especially Sasquatch, does seem to work with aliens like the regular ones, the Greys and the Palladians. I think there is some relationship there. There's been talk about in the background in a Gray uh, uh, exam room, they would see a Sasquatch in the background. Maybe that's true. Maybe it's just their imagination. I don't know, but there seems to be some relationship. I mean, there's always relationship with the Sasquatch, where there's UFOs kind of around. Sometimes people see the UFOs first, then they have the Sasquatch experience, or vice versa. They have a Sasquatch experience and then they see UFOs. That is more common than one would think. Uh, I've had quite a few people come to me and talk about that, or when some of the expeditions I would do at Kiwani, we'd go out and talk to people, and that came across it several times actually. So, anyways, the next group of beings is called the plasma beings, and they're kind of energy entities. Um, and they're not truly again physical. Described it kind of the swirling energy orb of light shifting. These kind of what would I say? Entities that you can't really describe easily. Let's put it that way. Now, with the encounter I had, I think I may have told you I had a close encounter with three entities. Okay, one was a gray. I talked about that. One was a reptilian. I kind of talked about that. And the other one I can't even describe to you. So I think it falls under this plasma thing. I knew it was there. I knew it was there, but I could not, to this day, describe to you what I saw. I saw something, but I don't know how to describe it. I don't know if that's just the way they want to do it or what the deal is, but I couldn't describe it at all. So anyways, those are the kind of that particular one is really kind of really the strange one. And then there's kind of another group, I kind of call it the interdimensional travelers, but beyond our space time. And their descriptions vary widely. They kind of defy the understanding of form and physics, and some of them, are shapeshift and are kind of a multi-dimensional view at once, kind of a predator kind of look, stealthy kind of predator kind of look. And a lot of times they don't really communicate. They just kind of leave impressions in your mind. Okay. Um, Sort of like they're trying to manipulate you, but they kind of create these pictures. I've not only talked to one person that it would fall into these interdimensional travelers. Um, Again, they're very similar to the ones I was talking, the plasma beings, but I think there is some slight differences here. Um, Anyways, anytime anybody encounters these dimensional type travelers, we'll call them, there's quite a bit of confusion because it's so different. It's typically happens in kind of an altered state, not a dream state, but an altered regular state, daytime state. So, anyways, so that's it. So there is this is probably makes up. I'm going to say 90%. This is my belief. What I've researched, what I read, my personal experience, and the 1,500 or so abduction contactee interviews I've done. I think there probably could be a few more out there. I mean, if you know of a few more or have encountered something different than what I've said, please let me know either here or dimensionalwalking@gmail.com. And I guess with all that said, we'll catch up to you next time. Bye bye. Here we go.